The blue-skinned council representative K stared at the holographic mission report with 4 of his eyes, while his other 2 remained fixed on the door. His thin fingers trembled slightly as he reached for his calming nerves. The mission had failed. Not just failed. It had failed so badly that his team's failure would be taught in academies as an example of what not to do. 3 elite teams, he muttered to himself. 3 of our best teams, and they couldn't even get past the outer defenses. The pirate stronghold still floated in the Crimson Belt, a massive asteroid converted into a fortress. Inside its reinforced walls lay the artifact that could tear the peace of 5 sectors apart. K didn't even know its full capabilities. That information was above his clearance level. All he knew was that if they didn't get it back within 30 standard days, the consequences would be severe. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. His assistant, Rem, walked in with careful steps typical of their species. "Sir, the Council has rejected our request for a 4th team," Rem said, their voice barely above a whisper. K's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in his species. Rejected, but they must understand the importance. "They do," Rem cut in. "That's why they've approved your alternative suggestion." K froze. He had made that suggestion in desperation, never expecting the Council to actually approve it. "They're letting us hire a human?" he asked, his voice mixing disbelief with fear. Rem nodded, their pale skin taking on a slightly greener tint of anxiety. "They've approved contact with Thomas Reed. His file is already in your system." K activated a new hologram. The image showed a bipedal creature that made both aliens instinctively step back. Even in a still image, the human looked dangerous. Unlike the graceful, evolved species of the Council, this was clearly a creature shaped by a world that wanted to kill it. Thick muscles, dense bones, and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything as either prey or predator. This was what a death world produced. The file made for terrifying reading. Reed had survived conditions that would kill most sentient species: high gravity, extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, environments that the Council considered impossible for sustained operation were listed as routine working conditions in his job history. "Look at these mission logs," Kay said, scrolling through the data. He breached the maze of Gorn by punching through a wall. The wall was reinforced plasteel. "Humans don't seem to respect impossibility the way normal species do," Rem observed. "They treat impossible more like a suggestion." Kay read further into Reed's file. The human had completed 17 impossible missions in the past 2 standard years. His methods were described as unconventional, aggressive, and completely insane by various reports. But he got results. "Send the contact request," Kay decided. Maximum urgency rating. The response came back so quickly that both aliens jumped. A simple text message. "Interested. Send mission details and payment offer. Will arrive in 18 hours. Read." 18 hours. Rem's skin turned almost white, but he's listed as being in the outer rim. That's a 4-day journey at maximum safe speed. Kay felt a chill run down his spine. Check the logs. See how he's planning to get here so fast. Rem's fingers danced over the console. Their eyes widened. He's going to take a shortcut through the Razor Field. The asteroid field that's labeled as certain death on every star chart. Yes, he's listed it as a scenic route on his flight plan. Kay sank into his chair, all 4 hands gripping his desk. What have we done? We're actually bringing a Deathworlder here, a creature that looks at a death trap and calls it scenic. Rem tried to sound reassuring. The Council approved it. That means they think the situation is desperate enough to justify this level of extremity. Or, Kay said quietly, they think we're already doomed, so we might as well try the impossible. He looked at the human's image again. Send word to all stations. Tell them to prepare for human protocols. And Rem. Yes, sir. Pray to whatever you believe in that this human is as good as his file suggests. Because if he isn't, we're about to make everything much, much worse." The assistant nodded and hurried out, leaving Kay alone with the hologram of the human. Those predator eyes seemed to stare right through him, and Kay couldn't shake the feeling that he had just initiated something that would change the galaxy forever. The entire docking bay fell silent as Thomas Reed stepped out of his ship. He wasn't particularly tall for a human, but to the gathered aliens, he moved like a predator. His boots made heavy thuds against the metal floor, a reminder of Earth's higher gravity and the dense muscle mass it created in its children. "Bit of a welcoming party," Reed said, looking at the nervous crowd of Council security officers. His voice was surprisingly gentle, but it still made several aliens flinch. He carried a simple black bag over his shoulder, and his clothes were plain: dark pants, a gray shirt, and a worn jacket. No weapons were visible, which somehow made him seem more dangerous, not less. Kay stepped forward, trying to hide his nervousness. "Welcome to Station 7, Mr. Reed. I trust your journey through the scenic route was pleasant." Reed smiled, showing teeth, an expression that made several security officers step back. "Lovely view. Had to dodge a few rocks, but nothing special." He spoke as if threading through a deadly asteroid field was as routine as walking down a street. They moved to the briefing room, where Kay had prepared a detailed presentation about the mission. Before he could start, Reed walked straight to the holographic display of the pirate stronghold. "Your teams tried to enter through these maintenance tunnels," Reed said, pointing at the structure. It wasn't a question. "Classic approach. Too classic. Pirates probably have those areas more heavily guarded than their main entrance." Kay blinked all 6 eyes in surprise. "How did you?" "Scorch marks on the outer hull," Reed explained, zooming in on the image. "Fresh damage patterns. Plus, it's what I would expect from Council tactical doctrine. You always go for the subtle approach." He paused, studying the structure. "Tell me about the gravity systems." "The asteroid has artificial gravity generators maintaining 0.7 standard throughout most sections," Kay explained. Reed nodded, making notes on a small device. "And the pirates? What species?" "Mostly Regulans and Vex. Some drift nomads." Kay pulled up images of the various species, all adapted to standard gravity or lower. "Good." Reed's smile widened slightly. "That's very good." Kay felt a chill run down his spine. "May I ask why that's good?" "Because," Reed said, still studying the images, "it means they've never had to fight someone who thinks gravity is a weapon, not just an environmental setting." He looked up at Kay. "I need a team. Not your standard Council operatives. I want the ones you keep hidden away because they're too aggressive for regular duty." Kay shifted uncomfortably. "We do have some specialists, ones who don't fit well with standard protocols, but they're considered unstable." "They're considered unstable because they still have fighting instincts," Reed corrected. "Bring them in. I need 4, preferably from heavy worlds." Within an hour, Reed was meeting his new team, a massive reptilian Korth named Dex, whose species was known for their raw strength. Twin sisters from the high-gravity rings of Parax, Lyra, and Mira, both expert mechanics who had been deemed too experimental for Council work. And a quiet, dark-scaled Nox called Ash, whose species were natural infiltrators before being civilized by the Council. "Perfect," Reed said, looking at his unusual team. "You've all been held back, told to be more civilized, more controlled. That ends now. We're going to do this mission the uncivilized way." "What exactly is the uncivilized way?" Ash asked, speaking for the first time. Reed's grin should have been friendly, but it reminded everyone present of a predator about to pounce. "We're going to walk in through the front door. We're going to break their gravity systems, and we're going to remind them why the galaxy used to fear warriors instead of respect diplomats." Kay watched from the corner as Reed briefed his team. The human moved with absolute confidence, and somehow his certainty was infectious. The four unstable specialists were listening with growing enthusiasm, their natural instincts awakening after years of suppression. Representative K. Reed called out suddenly, "You might want to warn the council. Things are about to get very uncivilized around here." K nodded weakly and hurried out. Behind him, he heard Reed beginning to outline a plan that violated at least 15 council combat protocols. And somehow, for the first time since this crisis began, K felt something new. The council observation room was packed with officials watching the mission feeds. Their horror grew as Reed's ship approached the pirate stronghold, not with stealth or careful maneuvers, but at full speed with all lights blazing. "He's going to get them all killed," one council member whispered. On the main screen, Reed's voice came through clear and calm. "Dex, how's that gravity feeling?" The massive Korth's grunt carried through the comm. "Heavy, like home." Reed had adjusted the ship's gravity to 1.2 standard. Comfortable for him, challenging for most species, but perfect preparation for what was coming. "Pirates are responding," Lara reported from her station. 3 patrol ships launching. Reed's laugh made several council members shiver. "Right on time. Mira, show them what we prepared." The twin sisters worked in perfect sync. Their ship released what looked like debris, broken hull pieces, and floating junk. The pirate ships adjusted course to avoid the space trash, exactly as planned. "They're responding exactly like civilized pilots," Reed commented. "Shame we're not civilized today." The debris suddenly sparked to life, magnetic mines disguised as space junk. They latched onto the pirate ships, not damaging them, but covering their sensors with false readings. "Ash, you're up," Reed called. The Nox specialist activated their ship's new modification, a system that broadcast emergency signals on all frequencies. To the pirate's sensors, already confused by the magnetic interference, it would look like a ship in serious trouble, desperately trying to avoid a collision. "They're moving to intercept," Ash reported, their dark scales rippling with excitement. "They think we're going to crash into their dock." Reed nodded. "Council training says to help ships in distress. Pirates use that training against good people. Today, we use it against them." The council members watched in disbelief as the pirate stronghold's main docking bay opened to catch what they thought was a failing ship. Reed's vessel shot through the opening at full speed, the artificial emergency signals cutting off the moment they were inside. "Impact in 3. Lara started. 2. Mira continued. 1. Reed finished. Their ship hit the docking bay floor. Not a crash, but a perfect powered landing that shattered the gravity plates beneath them. The carefully calculated impact sent shockwaves through the station's artificial gravity system. "Gravity failing in sections 5 through 8, Ash reported with satisfaction. Reed was already moving. "Suits on. Remember your training. They're about to learn why gravity control matters." The council feed switched to internal cameras. Reed's team moved like they'd trained for years together, not hours. The twins split off toward engineering, their movements precise in the fluctuating gravity. Ash disappeared into the shadows, heading for the security systems. Reed and Dex took point, moving straight toward the incoming pirate security teams. The pirates fired their weapons, expecting their targets to take cover like proper, civilized combatants. Instead, Reed and Dex charged straight through the barrage. Their suits, modified with simple metal plates, deflected the energy weapons, something that went against every modern combat doctrine, but worked perfectly against weapons designed to pierce energy shields. "This is what happens," Reed said calmly as he reached the first group of pirates, "when you forget that sometimes the old ways work best." The council members watched in stunned silence as Reed and Dex engaged in what could only be described as primitive combat. They used the failing gravity to their advantage, pushing off walls and ceilings, their heavier muscles and training letting them control their movements, while the pirates flailed in the shifting forces. "Gravity systems at 20% and failing," Lara's voice reported. "Ready for Phase 2. Reed's reply was interrupted by his effortless dodge of a pirate's wild swing. "Do it. Let's show them what happens when you corner a Deathworlder." The twins activated their special modifications to the station's gravity systems. In different sections, the gravity began rapidly switching between zero and double standard. Pirates who had trained in stable environments found themselves completely disoriented. "This is barbaric," one council member said, watching the feed. "This is effective," another corrected, as Reed's team continued their advance without a single casualty. Kay, watching from the back of the room, finally understood. The council had spent centuries teaching species to be civilized, to fight with precision and technology. They had forgotten that sometimes the best way to deal with criminals wasn't to be more civilized, it was to be more adaptable. And humans, it seemed, were the masters of adaptation. Deep inside the pirate stronghold, Reed and his team moved through corridors littered with unconscious pirates. The fluctuating gravity had done its job. Most of the station's defenders were either passed out or too sick to fight. Only those who had managed to reach gravity-stabilized safe rooms remained a threat. "Ash, status report," Reed whispered into his comm unit. His boots were magnetized to the floor, letting him walk normally despite the changing gravity. The Nox's voice came back soft but excited. "Security center is down. But Reed, there's something you need to see. The artifact isn't just being stored. They're charging it up." Dex, who was watching their rear, growled softly. "Charging?" The council said it was inactive. "The council," Reed said as he checked around a corner, "doesn't know everything. Lyra, Mira, how's our path to the vault looking?" The twins responded in unison, their voices mixing together through the comm. "Main route is blocked. Heavy security doors. Looks like they activated emergency protocols." But they paused, and Reed could hear their grins. "We found something interesting in the maintenance logs." "Let me guess," Reed said, "waste disposal system." "Exactly. They have to move garbage out somehow. The chute runs right past the vault level." Several passing pirates had installed shields in their suits, adapting to the gravity changes. They charged toward Reed's position, weapons ready. Reed merely smiled and reached for his belt. "Dex," he said calmly, "remember what I said about human music." The massive Korth nodded and covered his hearing organs. Reed pulled out a small device and threw it toward the pirates. It unleashed a sound that, to humans, was merely uncomfortable, but to most alien species, whose hearing evolved in different gravity conditions, it was devastating. The pirates dropped instantly, their inner ear equilibrium completely destroyed by the sonic burst. "That's why humans are scary," Dex muttered. "You turn everything into a weapon, even sound." Reed was already moving toward the access panel the twins had marked. "We adapt. Now, about that garbage chute." The team reassembled at the maintenance access point. The twins had transferred control of the gravity systems to their portable units, maintaining the chaos in other parts of the station. Ash melted out of the shadows to join them, their dark scales reflecting the emergency lighting. "The vault's defense systems are impressive," Ash reported, showing data on their pad. "But they all depend on stable gravity to work. Laser grids, pressure plates, motion sensors, useless when gravity keeps changing." Reed nodded as he studied the garbage chute's access panel, almost like they never expected someone to fight dirty. He turned to his team. "What we're about to do breaks about 20 different council safety protocols. Anyone want to back out?" The team's response was unanimous. They moved closer, ready to follow their human leader into what any sane person would consider certain death. Right then, Reed said as he opened the panel, "Ash, you're our eyes. Twins, gravity control. Dex, try not to get stuck." The garbage chute was exactly as disgusting as expected, but Reed's team moved through it with practiced ease. The twins adjusted gravity in pulses, letting them fall upward through the chute's bends and turns. Council training would have called it reckless. Reed called it efficient. They emerged on the vault level, covered in grime but perfectly positioned. Through the walls, they could hear the hum of power. The artifact was definitely active. Council needs to explain what this thing really is, Lyra muttered as they approached the vault entrance. Later, Reed said, but his expression had changed. He wasn't just focused now, he was worried. First, we need to. He stopped. Through the vault's window, they could see the artifact. It wasn't just active. It was pulsing with a familiar energy pattern that made Reed's blood run cold. That's impossible, he whispered. That's Earth tech, old Earth tech, from before the contact wars. His team looked at him in confusion, but Reed was already moving. The mission had just become much more complicated than a simple retrieval. The pirates hadn't just stolen an artifact. They had found something that humanity had tried very hard to forget. And now Reed had to decide: follow council orders or prevent a disaster they didn't even know was coming. The vault's security alarm suddenly blared to life, its wailing sound echoing through the corridors. Something had detected them, despite all their precautions. Reed's expression hardened as he watched more pirates rushing toward their position through the security feeds Ash had accessed. They're mobilizing everyone, Ash reported, their scales darkening with concern. Even the sick ones, whatever this artifact is, they're willing to die protecting it. Reed checked his equipment while speaking quickly. That thing in there, it's a gravity bomb. My grandfather told me stories about them. Earth made them during the early wars, before we joined the Council. They can turn a planet's gravity inside out. His team stared at him in horror. Dex was the first to speak. Why would anyone build such a thing? Because humans were scared, Reed answered, his voice heavy with old shame. When we first met aliens, we weren't ready. We built weapons, terrible weapons. Then we realized we were becoming the monsters everyone thought we were, so we destroyed them all. He looked at the pulsing artifact, or we thought we did. The first wave of pirates hit their position. These weren't the usual defenders. They wore old-style mechanical armor that worked even in changing gravity. Reed recognized the design. Black market Earth tech. Twins. Full gravity, now. Reed shouted. Lyra and Mira slammed their gravity controls to maximum. The corridor's gravity suddenly matched Earth's, higher than most species could handle. The pirates stumbled, their armor grinding under the increased weight. But they kept coming. They've trained for this, Ash realized, firing their stun weapon. They knew humans would come eventually. Reed moved like water in the high gravity, his natural environment. He reached the first armored pirate and did something that made the Council observers gasp. He punched straight through the mechanical armor's joint, using pure human strength combined with precise targeting. Dex, the door. Ash, watch our backs. Twins, alternative pattern Omega. The team moved with perfect coordination. Dex's natural strength, enhanced by adrenaline, tore at the vault's door. The twins created a rippling pattern of gravity changes that sent unarmored pirates bouncing off walls while leaving Reed's team stable. Ash seemed to teleport between shadows, appearing just where needed to stop flanking attacks. But the pirates kept coming. They were desperate, fanatic even. Reed realized why when he saw their eyes. They were drugged, pumped full of combat stimulants that let them ignore pain and gravity stress. They're going to kill themselves fighting like this, Ash said, their voice shocked. Even pirates usually had some sense of self-preservation. Reed reached for his last resort, a small black box on his belt. Everyone. Filters on. Full seal. His team quickly activated their suit filters. Reed opened the box and threw its contents into the air, a fine powder that looked almost like glitter. What is that? Lyra asked, watching the powder spread through the air circulation system. Earth dust, Reed said grimly, from the most dangerous desert on my world. Harmless to humans, but it creates instant allergic reactions in most other species. We used it for crowd control before joining the Council. The effect was immediate. Even through their armor, The pirates began coughing and stumbling. Their drugged state worked against them. They couldn't recognize the danger through their artificial combat high. "Doors open," Dex announced. They rushed into the vault, but Reed stopped dead in his tracks. The artifact wasn't alone. Around it stood 5 figures in full environmental suits made on Earth. "Welcome, Mr. Reed," one of them said in perfect English. "We were wondering when humanity would send one of its attack dogs to clean up their old mess." Reed's mind raced. The Council hadn't known about the human connection, which meant this was a trap, he said. "Not for the Council. For humans. You wanted us to send someone who would recognize this technology." "Very good," the leader said. "Now let's talk about humanity's place in the galaxy. After all, we have a weapon that could remind everyone why Deathworlders should be in charge, not taking orders from creatures that can barely survive in our gravity." Reed looked at his team, then back at the humans. He had seconds to make a choice that would affect the entire galaxy's future. And for the first time in his career, he wasn't sure what the right move was. Reed looked at the 5 humans in their Earth-made suits, then at his alien team. In that moment, he remembered why he'd left Earth in the first place. "You're right about one thing," he said to the leader. "Deathworlders are dangerous, but not for the reason you think." Without warning, Reed spun and fired his magnetic grapple at the artifact's power core. The humans reached for their weapons, but they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd assumed Reed would side with his own species. "Now!" Reed shouted. His team moved instantly, each executing their part of a plan they hadn't even known they had. The twins slammed their gravity controls to 0. In the sudden weightlessness, Dex launched himself like a living missile, his reptilian bulk sending 2 of the humans spinning into the walls. Ash seemed to multiply, their shadow-jumping ability creating confusion in the null gravity. "You're betraying your own kind," the leader shouted, firing their weapon. The energy bolt missed Reed, who was pulling himself toward the artifact using his grapple line. "No," Reed answered as he moved. "I'm saving them from becoming monsters." He reached the artifact and wrapped his legs around its base for stability. "Humans didn't join the Council because we were weak. We joined because we were smart enough to know that being the strongest doesn't make you right." The twins worked in perfect sync, creating alternating gravity zones that trapped the remaining humans in pockets of intense weight while leaving Reed and the team in 0. It was a technique they developed during their brief training, one that only worked because they trusted each other completely. "The artifact's charging sequence is almost complete," Ash called out, checking the readings on their pad. "If it reaches full power." "It won't," Reed said. He pulled a small device from his pocket, something so simple the humans' weapon scanners had missed it. A universal power cell, the kind used in every ship's engine across the galaxy. The kind that could absorb massive amounts of energy. The leader realized what Reed planned. "You'll kill us all." "The feedback loop will be contained," Reed finished. He looked at his team. "Trust me." Their response was immediate. All 4 aliens moved to defensive positions around him, protecting him as he worked. Even facing death, they trusted their Deathworlder leader. Reed's fingers moved with precise speed, connecting the power cell to the artifact. The humans fired their weapons, but Dex moved his armored bulk to shield Reed. The twins created gravity wells that caught the energy bolts, curving them away. Ash disappeared and reappeared, taking out the humans' weapons with precise strikes. The artifact's pulsing grew faster, brighter. Warning alarms blared throughout the station. The humans tried one last rush, but Reed's team held them back. "Containment field ready," the twins shouted together. They'd rigged their gravity controls to create a bubble of intense gravity around the artifact. Reed made the final connection. Energy surged from the artifact into the power cell, creating a feedback loop that would either work or kill them all. The vault filled with blinding light. Then, suddenly, silence. The artifact's glow faded. The power cell hummed with contained energy. And Reed smiled. That, he said, looking at the stunned humans, is why the council hired me. Not because I'm strong, or because I'm scary. He stood up in the now normal gravity. They hired me because humans don't just adapt to overcome challenges. We adapt to find better solutions. The leader of the humans laughed bitterly. You think this makes you a hero? You just help them keep humanity down. No, Reed said as Dex began securing the prisoners. I helped keep humanity up here among the stars, where we belong. As equals, not conquerors. He turned to his team. Ash, signal the council. Twins, help me rig this power cell for safe transport. Dex, try not to enjoy guarding the prisoners too much. As they worked, Reed's team moved with even more coordination than before. They weren't just professionals working together anymore. They had become something the galaxy rarely saw. A team that bridged the gap between civilized and primitive, between Deathworlder and Council space. And in doing so, they had proved that the greatest strength wasn't in conquering the galaxy, but in protecting it. The council chamber was silent as Reed and his team stood before the assembled representatives. The captured artifact, now safely contained in a specialized transport unit, floated between them on a gravity pad. Behind them, the human prisoners were being led away to face justice. So Reed said, breaking the uncomfortable silence, I believe we need to have a conversation about full disclosure in mission briefings. The head counselor, an ancient being with crystalline skin, leaned forward. You knew what the artifact was from the beginning, didn't you, Mr. Reed? I suspected, Reed admitted. The council's desperation to retrieve it, the location in the Crimson Belt where Earth ships used to patrol, the energy signatures, it all pointed to human tech. He paused. What I want to know is why you didn't tell me. We needed to know. Another counselor spoke up. If humanity had truly changed, if given access to their old weapons, would they choose power or peace? Dex stepped forward, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber floor. You used us, used Reed. As a test. The twins, Lyra and Mira, exchanged looks of understanding. No, they said together. They used all of us. A human leader, a team of unstable aliens. They wanted to see if we could work together when it really mattered. Ash materialized from the shadows where they'd been hiding, and we did more than work together. We proved that the old labels, Deathworlder, civilized, primitive, they don't matter as much as trust and choice. Reed smiled at his team's insight. They're right, aren't they? This mission was never just about retrieving a weapon. It was about proving that the galaxy's future doesn't belong to any one species or approach. The head counselor's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been approval. When humanity first joined the council, many feared it would end in disaster. A species that evolved on a death world, joining civilized space, it seemed impossible. They gestured at Reed and his team. But you have shown us something remarkable. The very traits that make humans dangerous, their adaptability, their strength, their willingness to break rules, these can be forces for protection, not just destruction. What happens now? Reed asked, looking at the contained artifact. The weapon will be destroyed, properly this time, the head counselor declared. But more importantly, we are creating a new division, special operations, designed specifically for missions that require unconventional approaches. Reed looked at his team. Dex stood tall and proud, no longer trying to appear less threatening. The twins had their gravity controllers ready, unafraid to show their technological creativity. Ash had moved into plain sight, their natural stealth now a tool, not a shame. Let me guess, Reed said. You want us to lead it. Who better? The head counselor replied. You've proven that strength without wisdom is dangerous, but wisdom without strength is helpless. The galaxy needs both. On one condition, Reed said firmly, no more tests, no more hidden agendas. If you want us to protect the galaxy, we need trust, real trust. The council members looked at each other, then nodded in agreement. Later, as Reed and his team left the chamber, Kay was waiting for them. The blue-skinned official who had started all this looked at them with all 6 eyes shining. "When I called for a Deathworlder," Kay said, "I never imagined it would change everything." Reed shrugged. "Sometimes the best way to change things is to prove everyone wrong about what they think they know." He looked at his team, no longer misfits, but pioneers. "The galaxy called us primitives, called us dangerous. So we showed them that being dangerous doesn't mean being evil, and being primitive doesn't mean being wrong." "What's our first official mission?" Dex asked eagerly. Reed grinned that Predator's grin that no longer scared his teammates. "First, we celebrate. Then—" He pulled out his communication device, already showing new mission alerts. "We show the galaxy what happens when you combine the best of every world, Deathworlds included." As they walked away together, the human Deathworlder and his team of uncivilized specialists, they knew they had started something new, something that would change the galaxy's understanding of strength, civilization, and what it truly means to protect peace among the stars. The mission had failed, so they called a Deathworlder. And in doing so, they had found something far more valuable than any artifact. They had found a new way forward.